Hey there, toy collector friends and Transformers fans alike. It's the Triple TC here, that's the Time Travelling Toy Collector, welcoming you back to my channel, or if it's the first time you've ever found your way here, welcome. You are, of course, absolutely welcome. Today we're looking at a, well, I won't say it's vintage, but it's a prime example of Hasbro doing what Hasbro's been doing for a very long time. Now, this is the Earthrise War for Cybertron release of Decepticon Runamuck, who was one of the Battlechargers back in the 80s. So in the 80s, you had Runamuck and Runabout, who were sort of friction activated, pull back and go, and they literally would drive along and they'd flip up on the bonnet. The bonnet would become, pretty much as you're seeing here, would become the lower portion, but it would also be most of the legs as well. And the body would flip up, the arms would literally just flip out from the sides, they were the doors, and the canopy, the boot of the car, the trunk, would flip down to reveal the head, and it had no articulation, it just rolled forwards in robot mode. So again, one of those quite fun G1 toys that had zero articulation apart from the sort of spring-loaded pop-up stuff. It was kind of like a Decepticon response to the jump starters or vice versa. So that's kind of how it worked. So that was them in G1. And then back in the days of Earthrise, or at least the War for Cybertron trilogy, they came back. And they came back with the attention to G1 aesthetic that I think War for Cybertron managed to infuse in an I would say a new age of collectors. I think it was the War for Cybertron figures, if I'm brutally honest and really analysing it, that re-triggered my own personal interest in collecting Transformers, because I was seeing those of you who are long-standing members of the channel will know that the Commander class Skylynx was actually the first Transformer I got in my new collection, and it was gifted to me as a Christmas present, and almost as a sort of, not as a joke per se, but as a sort of light-hearted gift, because it was like, you know, here's a Christmas present you never got as a kid. But it was the modern iteration, it wasn't motorized, it was the modern Commander class version, and I was so impressed by it and mesmerized by it that I started investigating what else was going on in the world of Transformers, and found so much stuff that was doing what Runamuck here is doing so perfectly, at least from the point of view of the box, which is giving us that G1 aesthetic, albeit without the gimmick, which I'm not disappointed about, but with modern day articulation. And I think this is the thing for me, because I do love, as many of you will be aware, I do love nostalgia, and nostalgia drives a lot of my collecting across any number of ranges, as I think it does for quite a few people, if we're brutally honest with why we do it. Not everyone, I know, but with a lot of people. So I think I think they really have keyed in to a collector psyche here. And I know lots of people talk about the concept of all that what they're producing now is mini masterpieces, and they're making toys for adults and all of this stuff. I think they're making toy. I mean, yes, I think there is an eye to the adult collector market for sure, and I also think that the comment about mini masterpieces is very, very accurate. But I also wonder whether it's slightly misleading, because again, on the scale of it all, are they mini masterpieces, or is that just where our engineering is at now as a standard? Now, I say that fully aware that there are some engineering issues, and there are some figures that are currently being released, Constructicon Studio Series 86, I'm looking at you, who perhaps should be, or we felt should be more mini masterpiece-esque, but perhaps are lacking in some aspects, maybe around articulation or whatever, aspects of articulation. But that said, even in context, the figures themselves, when you compare them to the generation figures and look at their cartoon and movie appearances, I think what they've still managed to do, not saying they're perfect figures, and I'm not saying any of them are perfect figures across the ranges, but I think they have managed to find an almost sweet spot of hitting that G1 aesthetic, because this is what our imaginations back in the day pretended our toys could do. They could not. They could barely stand up on their own, let alone hold a gun. let alone do any posing. So our imaginations did all the work. Now we're in a position where the toy does most of the work, and if it lets us down because it can't do what our imaginations meant our G1 versions could do, we get a bit cross about it. And I'm trying to temper that in myself, because I think, well, if I had my G1 version, I only ever had Runabout, in the black one in G1, I never had Runamuck. If I had that figure next to what I think this one's going to be able to accomplish, there's no competition. My 8 or 9 year old self would be absolutely crying in ecstasy that this exists. Whereas my somewhat older self looks at some Transformers like the Constructicons and goes, hasn't got a waist swivel. Hello Generation 1 Constructicons that hadn't no leg articulation or anything. Any movement it had was just there to service the transformation, mostly. So I need to have a word with myself sometimes, and I think that there's a bit of that out in the collector psyche, because we are so now accustomed to being spoilt, quite frankly, with modern articulation and engineering, that when it falls slightly short, not of, I mean, I say it's our expectations, but our expectations are based on what? On what our imagination used to do with our toys. It's if they could, because being realistic, if they could do X or Y within the price point, they would do it. If they could give us a waist swivel, why wouldn't they? Why would they not give it to us if they could? But the Constructicons have multiple functions. They have to do toy robot, toy vehicle, and then combine. And in combined form, which Hasbro are not daft, they know the combined form of Devastator, for example, is what everyone's looking at. They have to, and I'm using that as an example because I don't know yet what Runamuck's articulation is going to be like. So this is my way of contextualizing my reaction to this once I get him out, which made that sound terribly academic, and it's not meant to. It's just meant to be a bit of fun. But I do catch myself sometimes, and I observe it in some other online reviewers, where there's a sense of disappointment, sometimes bordering on entitlement, but that's me, not other people. That figures don't do what we would imagine them to do. And it's great that we hold toy companies to high standards, because they should be high standards, because God knows they're expensive. But I think there's also, we need to be pragmatic in those high standards. And so I'm just laying that out as my stall going into this figure. So again, looking at the packaging here, Runamuck looks absolutely amazing in this artwork. Again, as I say, really key. It's only a deluxe cast as well. So really keying into what we would hope this figure would look like, and doing already so much more than the original could ever do. Just looks fantastic. So just I assume that translates into Battlecharger. I hope we do get a Runabout as well, because I would like to reunite them. I never had the pair. The irony being I've now got Runamuck and don't have Runabout anymore. But again, there he is in his alt mode, and it is indicative of the G1 version of the Battlechargers. 16 steps to change him. Transformers. Figure accessory and instructions. Please don't eat anything small. There is the now wonderfully pseudo vintage Earthrise Warfare Cybertron artwork. Again, Transformers boxes. I know they went through a bit of a period, but I think I was happily not involved in Transformers at that point in the collecting of them. I adore the box art of Transformers, and I think that's something that they do consistently well. Certainly through some of the latter ranges, right up to the current Age of the Primes range. This is a re-release purchased through In Demand Toys. Who are very, very good at getting stuff in and very, very good at getting stuff out. But the one thing that I've not found anyone being very, very good at is having a Studio Series 86 Perceptor with the cassettes, the updated Perceptor. Can't find him anywhere, and I'm beginning to get palpitations. So I'm hoping that somebody will be at MCM Comic Con later in the year. I think it's in October 2025. And they'll have a stall, at which point I'll be able to pick up Studio Series 86 Perceptor and not be paying 500 quid for it, which I won't do. Right, let's get Runamuck out of the box. And here we are with Runamuck out of the packaging, and he looks really great. We do have a slightly oversized, in my opinion. That's how big it is. It's bigger than him. The instructions are bigger than him. That's bonkers. But we have Runamuck out of the packaging. He looks fantastic. I'm really hoping that there's no yellowing issues, considering the guy is entirely white. And I'm also hoping there's no gold. I mean, I think the gold is just painted. I mean, I've not taken a huge look at him yet. But he does come with this lovely handheld blaster there, which is very nicely produced in black plastic, which he does hold. There's no sort of wrist rotation there, but you can see there's a little bit of wrist movement because of the transformation joint there. So let's remember that he's a deluxe figure. And take a look from head down. Head sculpt is really good. I vaguely remember what mine looked like, and I'm pretty sure, as in Runabout, because they were pretty much the same sculpt, just different colours. And I'm pretty sure that head sculpt is exactly what their head sculpt needs to be. And indeed, from a replication of the original, thematically, it's bang on. Now, admittedly, in the original, this was all joined together. It would flip up and he'd just come at you like that, quite intimidatingly. But it was just everything just flipped out, and there was no separate legs. That was one of those standard G1 tropes where the legs were solid and not separate entities. This panel is true to the G1 aesthetic, so people looking at that saying, but he's got an awful thing hanging off the back of his head. That was the Battlechargers. That was Runamuck and Runabout had that, because it was literally just flipped back and then hung there on his back. So from a G1 accuracy perspective, that's how that played out. What's something I love here, and I love it when Hasbro managed to do this, is the chest unit here, which of course in the original was the chest. It just literally flipped up and that was the chest. Has the Decepticon logo very nicely, clearly, prominently on the front there, and the translucent plastic around the edges, making out that it is sort of the main. What do you call it in a car where the driver sits? What do you call it? The seating area? The cockpit? I don't know. I've never thought. Okay, so this is my new What's It Called game for people following this video. What do you call the part of the car? It's going to be something really obvious, and I'm just going to die of shame. Where everyone sits. Canopy? Can't be cockpit, can it? What do you call it? Oh, my goodness me. Okay, folks, let me know in the comments, and feel free to shame me, because I'm ashamed of myself for not knowing. But anyway, so whatever you want to call it, this is false. This is a faux part. This is just his chest. The actual frontage is tucked away here. And we'll get to that when we get around to the transformation, which I've not done yet, so I will comment on that once I've done it. The detailing on the arms, there's a lot of mechanical detailing, which I think is done really, really well. We can see that we have all the sort of standard articulation we would expect to see, apart from a wrist rotation, and there is some clear space there, but within it you can see there's molded detailing, so it's not just like a void. I mean, it is a bit of a void, but within the void there is some detailing that they didn't have to have, so it is slightly picked up, at least by the detailing. It's quite nicely stiff. So does he have a waist rotation? Yes, look, a deluxe from 10 years ago has got a waist rotation. Up we go with the hips. I wish that wasn't there, but there you are. You know, you get everything you're looking for in terms of articulation, and they're independent legs, so that, you know, the panels aren't an issue. Let's look round the back. We have that, as mentioned, very G1 on brand, kind of flipped back section that is, you know, essentially how they were. The doors are slapped on the back of his arms, but that's, you know, again, this is what I mean when it recaptures that G1 essence, because that's exactly what they were. They were the doors and they just flipped open to give us arms. No articulation. This is, you know, miles apart. Unfortunately, we have quite a bit of gapping and void space behind the legs. But again, deluxe, and I'm not posing him showing off the back of his legs. I do also like the way the feet work. So we've got these essentially what looks like an additional set of wheels next to this set of wheels. I'm assuming they disappear somewhere because they are, you know, they do provide a lovely bit of heel action. But I'm assuming they disappear somewhere, and the wheels are tucked away. The back wheels are tucked away somewhere behind his head. I think I can see them actually. Sorry, they're behind his head. But again, so a nice set of faux wheels, really giving off that impression that that's where all his wheels are. And I love that. Is something I love, and I loved it when, for example, in the Legacy Motormaster, where the G1, his feet were literally the cab. But in the far more superior transformation engineering of the Legacy version of Motormaster, the cab was disappeared entirely elsewhere, but his legs opened up to give faux cab as his feet. And again, we do have a little bit of ankle articulation there and small amount of ankle rock, but it does mean that we can get a bit of a pose, and we can do some dynamic posing with the figure, which is great because, you know, I very much want him to join my I know it's predominantly Studio Series 86, but that whole G1 aesthetic, he brings it. And I know that the Earthrise figures must be knocking on about 10 years now. Yeah, no, about 10 years for Earthrise, maybe. Don't tell me it's more, goodness. But you know, I think this gun holds up really well, and there's no, you know, I can give him a good old shake. Nothing moves about. The gun doesn't fall out. So, you know, absolutely bang on in terms of what we might be expecting from a deluxe class figure. And he does, as I've alluded to earlier, he does a couple of more recent deluxe classes a bit dirty because he's a little bit better, I would suggest. So yeah, so this is Runamuck in his Decepticon robot mode. I'll now transform him off camera so that you don't waste any time watching something you've probably seen 1,000 times. Other people do it far more impressively than I'll do it. But I'll then report back on how simple I found it or otherwise, and if there were any pinch points for me that anyone who is picking him up on his new lease of life, this new reorder, this new re-release that he's seeing now, then you can avoid those like the plague. Anyway, don't touch that dial. And here we have Runamuck all transformed into his vehicle mode. And overall, the transformation is very straightforward. It's very simple. It's not too demanding. However, a couple of pointers. Where the arms connect as the doors, this is really tight. It's just a connection tab, and it's really, really tight. And this one is refusing to go fully in, and I have spent quite a bit of time trying to get it in, which is resulting in this bit not staying tabbed in fully, and that having a knock-on effect all along sort of the lineage of this side. Very frustrating. And of course, because this whole section is our old friend translucent plastic, although it's very effective when you see through the translucent plastic there. So that's all lovely. But what it means is where I'm trying to put pressure to get these to connect fully. You can see that tab shouldn't be visible. It should have seamlessly fitted in. This one has done it better, but not completely. But it's probably because the whole thing is stiff and it needs to be stretched out a little bit. So you know, we've all had that experience where things can be a little bit stiff, but once you stretch them out, everything fits just right. But overall, the aesthetic of the car, I think it's really terrific. So we've got the style of a Runamuck here. I love the white and black, the black being the tinted translucency there. We've got the gold trim along the side and along the front there. Most of this, as I say, during the transformation held together really well. It is just this little point that's problematic. The wheel trims are really nice. The faux wheels do tuck in. I kind of wish they tuck in a bit further, and maybe they will when everything else is lined up properly. But they are sort of out of vision because, you know, when it's down like that, you can't see them. The car, this isn't the best example, but it does roll. But this is not it's not great for rolling things on, but the wheels do. This is a little stiffer, but again, I think where it's not quite doing what I want it to do, it's because of the connectivity being a problem. His accessory, which is this gun that we've seen previously, can attach here to give him sort of Battlecharger attack mode. I think to remember the original, it would attach to one side on the outside, which you can't replicate here. But then when he sprung up into action, it was mounted on his shoulder. I think they both Runabout and Runamuck had that gimmick as part of the spring-loadedness, and it just gave him somewhere to have his blaster, which is, you know, again, something G1 didn't always do and take care of. So all in all, I think the car mode works really, really well. I really like it. I think it's nice that we've got this faux back piece that comes into play. The translucent plastic section does make me cringe a little because I do fear that it's going to give way and crack as I try and force it into position. That's what I always feel with a transformer. Things should connect well, and you should never it should be firm, but you should never feel that you're having to force something in. I think the minute you feel that you're starting to force it in, either it's mistransformed or it's a QC issue, because again, we don't want things coming loose. So I appreciate there has to be adequate friction for something to hold in place. But tabs like these, the clearance to get the tab to connect is really tight. It's really, really tight. And I just think that's the issue. So I'm looking forward to having Runabout at some point in the future sitting there. So I'm hoping now they've re-released Runamuck, we will get a chance to get Runabout as well. And I do think it's lovely and very good business sense actually for them to go back on some of these earlier range figures. Now I don't know whether what's really happened and what the story behind that is. I don't know whether they've found a whole ton they've never shipped, and so they're now saying, oh, it's a reissue, but they're actually just letting everybody have it, because I think they've done the same for some Titans and some various classes across the War for Cybertron. So great that they're doing it, but because there's a couple that I've got my eye out for, and now of course Runabout is one of them. So did you pick up Runamuck the first time around? Are you lucky enough to have Runamuck and Runabout in their newish War for Cybertron modes? Have you had this issue with the doors? Did you find a workaround that I've not figured out yet? And if so, can you please share it with me? Because it's extremely frustrating. If you haven't already, please do like the video. Thank you for spending the time with me. If you're someone who watches the videos but hasn't yet subscribed, please do so. It's just a simple click, and it just means you won't miss anything in the future, and it in no way commits you to watching all the output, because if you're only interested in Transformers, you don't have to watch everything to do with Star Trek or Star Wars. But if you're interested in those things and not things like Doctor Who or Battlestar Galactica or G.I. Joe, then equally, you know, you can make your choices, but at least you know every time a video has been posted. So it just remains for me to thank you again for your time here. If you want to check out my Patreon, the link will be in the description down below, and that will take you to the option to have a free membership, where there is some exclusive videos for members, as well as an additional tier should you be interested, but you can read all about that on the page. I very much look forward to seeing you in a future video. I've been the Triple TC, that's the Time Travelling Toy Collector, and this has been the Decepticon Battlecharger Runamuck, all the way from G1, now rematerialising in the War for Cybertron Earthrise iteration that Hasbro and Karatomi have recently re-released, and I was able to pick up from In Demand Toys. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in the future, where I will be reminding you that a thing of beauty really is a toy forever. Take care. Bye-bye for now.